on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
I've already gone over a lot of the issues that the 07 movie line had. When it transitioned from bulky designs to mainly panelly ones, there were a lot of growing pains. I basically discussed all of this yesterday, and it really shows in today's figure as well. But Optimus Primes always get a bit more effort put into them. Well, usually anyway, there are a few stinkers here and there. But they know that kids are going to buy these in droves, so it really gives them chances to experiment, chances to push the envelope. A good Optimus Prime sticks with you for years to come. So, at the small scale, how was their first outing into the movieverse? It's very well known that the 2007 movie line was a bit weird due to it being a transitional period. For the past decade or so, Hasbro was used to making big, chunky, playable figures. And then they were stuck with these designs that were, well, not playable. They were very streamlined to fit into the then new live-action aesthetic. Wow, that's a mouthful. And so going into designs like this, there was an adjustment period. Of course, when it comes to Optimus Prime, I think they did an okay job for a first attempt. In vehicle mode, he is alright. He definitely shares a lot of the same design cues that the leader class version did, mainly in the choice of red and blue. The red and blue are a lot darker when compared to later movie renditions, which of course the leader class spearheaded as well. Aside from that though, it's basically what you've come to expect. It's very compact for an Optimus Prime, like they didn't get the proportions exactly right, mainly because they were used to making toyetic kind of figures instead of accurate ones. But yeah, even though the proportions aren't really accurate, they're a lot more angular, especially in the window area, it does so pretty well. I love how the front is entirely silver. It's not something you'd really get on a Legends figure these days. The silver also pops up on the top here, which is lovely, and you got a different metallic blue on the windows there, instead of just using the same old silver, which I know many Legends figures would have done these days. And the silver on the top is nice too, and they've got a different shade for the metallic blue windows, something I know they wouldn't do later on. But aside from that, yeah, it's a pretty decent vehicle mode. The flames look extra sharp, and there's a lot of flames on show. I don't think the color match is exactly right between the blue paints there and the blue plastic there, because this is an entirely red piece, but given the difficulty of matching those two tones, especially on a really piercing color here, yeah, I can cut them some slack. Back's really clean for a Legends figure too. You've even got an almost faux trailer hitch there. Though, funnily enough, the back wheels are fake. They're used to hide the ball sockets, which, yeah, that's pretty clever. But yeah, it's as great as you could expect, and of course, given how good it turned out, they had to make redecos. Yes, for the All-Spark Power subline, they decided to give us the Nightwatch redeco. The very same redeco we saw in the leader class version, a fan favorite. This one was sold in a 2-pack with a sort of stealth Starscreamer-like. A bit of a weird fellow indeed, and one that I'll definitely cover one day. But not today, because we're primarily discussing this mold. The blue they've chosen is absolutely lovely, with a nice metallic fleck to it. It's very subtle, and when you look from a distance, you can't really see it. But up close on a camera like this, it is just gorgeous. Even the color matching is better. The color matching between the sides here is pitch perfect. Though, much like the original, the side window isn't painted, sadly. Both of them are like this. It's something that would have changed in general, but they have budgets they have to adhere to, so it kind of makes sense. Not really a fan of the giant gaudy Autobot symbol that completely ignores the tooling there, but I suppose it's okay, and I suppose it's something a bit different. The flames are in exactly the same spots. They probably use the same deco cutout so they could save budget, and they look lovely in this silver. It is the same silver as the front, so it does blend in a little bit, but they do look lovely in this sort of bluish silver. The same bluish silver I think they use for the front, or maybe there's a slight difference, but they do sort of blend in slightly together there. Honestly, I'm looking on camera and I can sort of see their different shades, but in person you cannot tell. You just cannot tell. They blended together quite a bit. Nice though that they continue the windows here. It's a shame they're painted in black instead of something else, but yeah, it's alright. Though this one does suffer a bit at the back. This shade of grey is kind of ugly. I just do not like that. It's not the worst I've seen, and it's definitely not any shade of Games Workshop grey, but they could have definitely done this a bit better. But in truck mode, these two are still pretty good. They're nothing groundbreaking. Well, I mean, the deco kind of is on Optimus Prime, but as figures they're not. But they still hold up, even by modern standards. Yes, they don't really fit into the whole accuracy first ideology, but as little Legends toys, they're quite fun. The only real major point of criticism, which I know they could have fixed, is the lack of a smokestack. They have one, they just don't have both. People claim it's because of safety reasons, but on the Revenge of the Fallen version, they fixed that a lot later, so I just don't see why they did this. It's pretty dumb. Size-wise, he is 2.5 centimeters wide, 3.5 centimeters tall, and 6.5 centimeters long. wrong. And for size comparison, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, which I guess he sort of is, a standard core class figure, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not so standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs. Transformation is quite simple. First thing you want to do is separate the arms, separate the legs so you can bring up the torso like so, bring the arms down into place, and fold up the feet like so. They unclip and they sit there. Nice unclipping sound, and in they go. And in robot mode, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this is definitely a downgrade from the vehicle mode. But unlike a lot of reviewers, both at the time and now, I'm not going to call this a bad figure. Again, the designers had a lot of growing pains in this era. They were dealing with designs that hadn't previously functioned fundamentally as toys. So they really had to change their outlook on the whole thing, and as a first attempt, could have been done better, but it was still alright. The head sculpt is about as good as anything from this price point could get. A bit mushed, but you know, what do you expect? Torso, though, is a bit of a shocker. You can sort of see the windows in there, but the side ones ironically look a lot bigger. The detail's all there, but it's just sort of squished. And then the waist section, yeah, there's no getting around that. My biggest gripe is actually the arms, though. I feel if they put the fist in there, it would have been a bit better, but having it come out like that, not the biggest fan of it. But my biggest annoyance is the shoulders. They have a bit of degradation issues. They cast both the torso and the shoulders in the same plastic. So over time, it wears down and just becomes a floopy mess. So it kind of looks like Optimus Prime is pleasing himself at times, which I'm not too fond of. It is very, very wibbly, and I kind of wish I could go back to how it was originally at release. Because I saw a lot of photos of them in decent poses, but I'll never be able to experience that because, you know, this copy was secondhand and it's already f***ed. So what can you do? It's just the way it is. The legs are okay, they're a little bit kibbly, but they function fine for the price point. I mean, you're not going to really get completely accurate legs. So, it's okay. One thing I do like, though, is that the backs of the legs, they've actually sculpted in the mechanical detail. The same detail you'd actually see on the screen model and eventually the Revenge of the Fallen leader class version. It's a nice little touch that they didn't have to do, and honestly, I'd have preferred if they saved all of that brilliance for the rest of the figure. But I'm not going to hate on it too much. It's a $5, $7 Legends figure at the time. I'm pretty sure it was $7 by the time the first movie came about. They had a monumental task ahead of them, and they did it fine, I suppose. Clearly, they made the vehicle mode first and then worked their way back and did what they could, hence the fake chest and the weird proportions. It's not going to be the accuracy of the Bylon version we're getting these days. It'll do, yeah, it'll do fine. And honestly, I would say that the Nightwatch version actually pulls it off quite well. There are some rather dumb decisions. For example, the torso is actually painted, not that you could tell because the paint is very similar to the stock blue. But for the most part, I'd say it actually pulls it off better than the stock version. The head's painted a lot better with much more pronounced eyes. The arms actually look a bit better in this blue. They stand out a lot more compared to the original version. And of course you got the black convoy effect in the legs a little bit, where they look a lot less kibbly. Also, a lot of that ugly grey just doesn't come through anymore because they've now got it all hidden at the back. Yeah, all of that grey went to the back, so you don't really see it from the front that much. So if you want to get one of these two, I'd probably get this one, simply because it looks better and also because it has a bit more novelty to it. The original Optimus Prime, well, you can just get the Revenge of the Fallen version, but this one is something special. Articulation's not great, but given the time, I can understand. They've got the ball-jointed shoulders. These ones actually have held up a little bit better. They can sort of hold a pose, whereas the original just cannot. You've got an ab crunch from transformation, but it doesn't really do anything, because it's basically the same as the ball-jointed hips. It accomplishes the same thing. On transforming, this doesn't do anything. It doesn't look like a knee bend, so basically it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5. That's about it. And honestly, that's all you really need. They could be a lot better, but they do have the novelty to them, especially the Nightwatch version. If you want this just to have a small-scale Optimus Prime, I'd probably stick with the Revenge of the Fallen version, also because that has better functionality. But if you want this just because it kind of looks weird and you just want it on your desk, well, it'll do you fine. There are far worse Legends figures out there from this period. You could do far worse. These have a lot of jank, because again, they are transitional pieces. But for what they are quite fun, and that's all I can really ask of this price point. Now, size-wise, he's roughly 4.5 centimeters by 8 centimeters. And for size comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, which again, he sort of is, a standard core class figure, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not so standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs. I don't hate this figure, but it does have a lot of flaws. A fake chest should allow them to go absolute ham on the detail, but because they really didn't know how to do said detail, it just ends up looking weird and wibbly. I can see why a lot of people hated this specific Optimus Prime when it first came out, doubly so when you compare it to the one that came out in 2009. They made a lot of improvements after that, but they first of course had to experience the growing pains. 07 Optimus Prime is very much in the same vein as Legacy RC. They tried so hard to mesh the two aesthetics together, but it just did not work. But from those mistakes, they were able to take what they'd learned and improve later down the line, and that is commendable. So while I can't rate this figure too high, I can't really get angry with it either. They were going places with this, and I really appreciate them for that. But let's actually take a look at those changes that they made. Let's actually take a look at the lessons they learned and see how they improved things. There's no point talking about how they failed the first time unless we can actually see how they succeeded with the second. So let's continue with the primes. Let's ride this train to the end. See you tomorrow!